You're listening to the Awkward High-Five podcast. You can follow along in your book. You'll know it's time to turn the page when you hear the chimes ring like this.
This is pitiful. 1,000 people freezing their butts off waiting to worship a rat. What a hype. Sound like they used to mean something in this town. They used to pull the hog out and they used to eat it. You're hypocrites, all of you. You got a problem with what I'm saying, Larry? Untie your tongue and you come out here and talk, huh? Am I upsetting you, Princess? You know, you want a prediction about the weather. You're asking the wrong Phil. I'll give you a winter prediction. It's going to be cold, it's going to be gray, and it's going to last you for the rest of your life.
Welcome to the Awkward Hi-Fi podcast. My name is Devin.
And I'm Richard.
And
it's Groundhog Day,
yes.
Right?
I got to tell you something. I think I'm getting sick of the movie thing.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say I'm getting sick of it, but I just like...
time to switch it up.
Yeah, I think it's time to switch it up.
We'll come up with something crafty.
Yeah, because when we started doing the movie quotes in the beginning of the episodes, it was kind of more of like... that was like back when we started the podcast and we were talking about ourselves.
Yeah, and it kind of defines us a little bit because we always spoke in movie quote our whole entire lives.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is like back then we were kind of explaining who we were and our friendship with each other, and we were kind of going through our life with each other a little bit, like the stages and everything. And we thought it would be a good idea to start using movie quotes that me and you used to say all the time.
Yeah.
Which we did for a long time, and we still do. I mean, most of them have, but now it's getting to the point where it's like, you know, like I love the movie Groundhog's Day. I fucking love it. But I just used that today because I was like, it's Groundhog's Day. This makes sense. And although me and you have quoted Groundhog's Day before, that wasn't like a movie of our past that I would say was like a big deal to us, like say UHF or something like that, you know? So I don't know. I'm just talking about this now. And
speaking of movie quotes, there's something I wanted to tell you when we were talking Die Hard. It may not be that funny, but to me, it's pretty damn funny.
Okay, so we're back in a Die Hard Oak already?
Just real quick.
No, it's fine.
I wanted to tell you something that you didn't know, and I think it was pretty damn funny because it has something to do with the boisterous Giordano nights out.
Oh,
you
okay,
know?
Yeah, sure.
So we were talking Die Hard all night while we were out drinking and getting rowdy and shit.
Is this one of the nights in New York?
New York, yeah. So
so for people at home who don't know, in case you haven't heard Rich refer to this in prior episodes, Rich has two brothers, one younger, one older. All three of them are pretty loud, drunk Italians, and they have these nights out in the city every once in a while.
Yeah,
a couple
usually
times
around Yankee and Ranger games.
Right, and they just go into the city and they could just get shithouse drunk and be three really loud, stinking Italians.
And for some reason, I'm always the voice of reason that I'm the glue that keeps us organized, which is so weird.
Which does not happen anywhere else on the face of the planet, ever.
But one night we were on a Die Hard kick, of course, because it always comes out here and there. But we're driving around New York City in the back of a cab with the windows rolled down, yelling at everybody as we drive by, going, "Where are my detonators? Or shall I shoot another one?"
Okay, was this before 9/11 or after 9/11?
That was after 9/11.
Probably not the best thing to run around New York screaming.
That's what we were saying, but that's what made it so much more funny, because we're like, "Where are my detonators?"
And your cab driver's like, right here in the front seat.
Yeah, exactly.
How many do you need? In which building are you doing it on?
But, of course, that's had to be their joke, but it's so funny when you're screaming, "Where are my detonators?" out of a cab in New York, right downtown.
I've had the most fun I've ever had drunk driving around cabs in New York. Some fun stuff.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I kind of always wish that we jumped into the cash cab because I would school that thing.
When I was working in New York and the cash cab was still a thing, and we'd be like out, you know, bar hopping and shit like that, and I was trying to flag down a cab.
You'd always look for the ones that were kind of SUV.
Yeah. I'd always do that. Like, I'd see it and I'd try to get that one. I'm like, please be cash cab. Please be cash cab.
Oh, that'd be great.
Although I watched Cash Cab a lot, and I don't know if I'd be able to deal with the stress of the situation, even though you're only talking about like a couple $100. Like, nobody wins like real money.
Questions are so easy.
But here's the situation, right? You're probably out, like, most of the people that get into the cab are like tourists or something like that, or people that are bar hopping.
Yeah.
So imagine you're like a normal dude like we are, and you're going out for the night, and like you got your money for the night, but it's not like you're sitting there balling and throwing money around. And then you get in this cab, and then all of a sudden the chance to pick up $1,000 that you could then say, all right, I have a free $1,000 to go out in Manhattan and just do whatever I want.
Yeah.
You know, like that alone,
That's
I think.
Awesome.
I know, but I think if I was in it, I'd be freaking out a little bit. Like, I want this to happen. I want this
You
to happen.
wanted it so bad that the adrenaline would be pumping.
And don't they have like a catch at the end of that, like all game shows do, where like a what's in the box, like that kind of thing? Like,
yeah, I think you could either risk it all and go for the final question and double your money,
or
lose
walk,
it all.
walk out with what you have. Yeah.
But you get 3 strikes though. You get 3, but still, I would think that'd be amazing because those questions are so easy, and that's like free money. You know, and if we got the money up to a point where it was good enough, I wouldn't even do the double or nothing. I would just take the cash and be out, party with it.
Yeah, that's not around anymore.
I know.
Do you know that show, which is the weirdest fucking like concept for a show? I'm just gonna drive around. That dude Ben Bailey, he's a stand-up. I'm just gonna drive around the city and then pick people up and quiz them. Like, became such a big show that they do that in other cities now. Like, there's a cash cab like in fucking Dubai and a cash cab in France and shit. Like, people like not stole, but just adapted that idea and kept doing it.
It's a good idea, you know, and then it's not like it's ridiculous like Jeopardy where they give away thousands. It's like, you know, starts out at 50, then to 100, then to 200, just enough to where the people could win their money and go out and have a good time in the city, which is it's great. It's a great concept, you know.
Yeah.
Especially for New York.
Well, anyway, like I started, I think we got to be done. Maybe there'll be a few more episodes, but me and you have to sit down and come up with a new
format.
Not a new format, but just a new beginning, like a cold opening, if you will, of the show.
We promise to keep it interesting, but it is going to switch off.
Yeah, sooner or later.
Yeah,
because I mean, I can't be sitting here on YouTube looking up fucking movie quotes all the time. Like, what are we going to use next?
We're going to run out of goodies.
Plus, another thing is that you know, technically, I guess we're not really supposed to be using those. And as the listenership of the Awkward Hi-Fi podcast increases, which it has been doing steadily, sooner or later that might become a problem. You know?
Yeah.
When
I fear the lawsuit. You know I do. Plus, I lost my amazing lawyer, so I can't be messing around too much anymore.
How'd you lose your lawyer? To death?
No, I just didn't pay him.
Oh, so this
because he overcharged. Because I found out that he knew I paid him cash, you know, and he would just pocket it and not, of course, like anyone else that you would pay cash to, would pocket it and not claim it, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And he was taking so much advantage of me that I found other people that he would, you know, give his lawyerings to, or whatever you want to call it, and he would charge them so much less than he was charging me because he was like using me because he knew it would be cash.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you find this out?
I knew someone else that he represented that he did a very similar case for them that he did for me, and he probably charged me maybe about $2,000-3,000 more than he charged them.
Holy shit!
So I told him to shove it, and I wasn't paying him shit.
And this is your recent lawyer, like your last?
I've been using him since 2010.
Huh. And you've gotten some shit since 2010.
Yeah.
So
and I mean, no bad things for the man. I mean, I would still refer him to people because he's gotten me out of things that God couldn't get me out of. He was an amazing lawyer. I give him a lot of respect. A lot of his shit is possibly crooked because he knows so many people and does so many favors that he's owed favors. But at the same time, his crookedness affected my wallet because he was just totally taking advantage of me because he knew how desperate I was to get out of this trouble. You know?
Yeah. Well, I would almost guess that a lawyer working in New Jersey, representing the type of trouble that you might get into, and something like that would probably maybe be a little, I don't know if I'm going to say mafia connected, but like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Everybody in New Jersey.
I like those kind of guys.
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, like, anybody in New Jersey, all the politicians, everything. It's crazy how this state is just so mob tied.
Yeah, it's not Manitowoc County.
Right, but man, it's like you can't get out of it. Speaking of keeping in my streak of, let's say, with Die Hard, where I've decided to go back and like watch some things that the rest of the world has enjoyed for a very long time, and I did not watch for one reason or another. I decided on a whim the other night to start watching The Sopranos.
Okay, and you've never watched The Sopranos?
Never seen it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Well, here was my thing, okay? When that show was out, number one, when that show was out, I wasn't watching much television. I was much younger.
Yeah.
We were doing the band thing. I was.
Yeah. I watched barely any television.
Yeah,
at that
right.
Moment too. Yeah.
Well, it's just that's the way life goes. You get older. We're now in our mid-30s. Things have calmed down a little bit as far as that stuff goes. So you need some entertainment, especially me. Like I work all day and then I'm by myself at night, so I'll throw on whatever.
Of course.
And so I just decided I have HBO Go, and I was flipping through, and I've seen most of the shows. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give this a chance. But my thing was, when we were younger and everybody was loving it, I always used to say, why am I going to watch a fucking television show about Italians from North Jersey? I spent my whole life avoiding Italians from North Jersey.
Oh, you got one sitting right here, baby.
No, I know. But I'm saying, like, growing up in this area in central New Jersey.
Yeah, you got your fill.
Yeah, everybody is from Staten Island, or and they're all Italians, and it's all the gabagool. Everyone's doing the over the top fucking Italian thing.
I'm not a gabagook.
I know you're not, but most people are.
Yeah, I know.
And so when I watched that show and I saw those guys doing that fake Italian thing, it just kind of turned me off.
I know.
So I watched the first season.
So much cool shit happens.
I watched the first season, and yes, it's very good. Well, let me say this, and I'm sure it gets better as it goes on, as most shows do. But there was a lot of corny shit, and maybe the only reason that I saw it as corny shit in the first season was because now The Sopranos is held so high up in the echelon of television shows, like that's everybody's most favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting. I guess I was going into it expecting like the writing to be like top notch and the acting to be top notch, and in the first season, at least, because that's as far as I've gotten, it's not. There's a lot of corny things. There's a lot of things where I'm just like, well, that's weak writing. Like,
I'm never a fan of the first.
They just threw that in, but I'm sure it gets better.
It does,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going to stick with it. I will finally be the last person, much like Die Hard, I will be the last person on earth to watch The Sopranos.
And that's the cool thing about David Chase, is that he doesn't slack on his like existentialism or his the struggles that Tony goes through psychologically, which of course affects and increases the fact that he's a sociopath.
Right.
And, it does a lot of flashbacks to his youth, which also contributes to that factor. So it's just a lot of creative writing that if you take it for what it is. It's a mob boss from, North Jersey, but at the same time, the struggles he goes through mentally really add to the fact to make it such an entertaining show.
Yeah, right. And I see automatically within a few episodes in, I saw why the world would have just fucking like crumbled for that show, which it did. And that show blew up so big, and I understand why. I know, but so you can't do that.
I'm sorry.
I'm articulate. Just so everyone knows at home, and it's happened last episode, is I shake my hands a lot, and Richie always makes it seem like I'm putting dicks in my mouth. I'm not. I swear I'm not.
Looks like a big blowing orgy.
No, but yeah. So fucking. I could tell right off the bat, I was like, I understand why people watch this, because it has the aspects of everyone's favorite movies, like The Godfather and The Goodfellas and Casino, but it also has that sensitive side to it.
Yes.
And which I think paved the way for like let's say Breaking Bad with Heisenberg, with Walt, right? Like he's kind of the same kind of character.
Yeah.
And I think
where you relate to the bad guy.
Yeah, right. You
Yeah.
kind of end up rooting for the bad guy,
Yeah, yeah.
and you see where he came from and what his sensitivity is. And,
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. I love that.
Now-
I love when you can relate to the bad guy because the way we romanticize criminals in America and organized crime, they totally exploit the shit out of that. And
Yeah.
they make us love the bad guy.
Right.
Because we always do. The mafia to us is almost like our Superman.
Right.
Yeah.
I also, another thing, and I'm sure anybody at home listening to this right now, in the same way that they did when I was talking about Die Hard, are probably going like, yeah, we know, Dick. We watched this show 10 years ago. I get it. But I'm just spouting my opinion on my motherfucking podcast.
Yeah.
No,
Seriously, you gotta take our opinion. We're passionate about it.
another thing that I really liked about it is they kind of show through whoever writes the show, at least the first season.
Yeah, David Chase.
No, yeah, right. But I'm saying whoever writes the dialogue. I'm sure
okay.
David Chase didn't write every episode.
Right,
you know.
right.
But whoever who's writing the show, at least in the first season, they use little things to show how mentally small these people really are.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was one line that just caught me off guard that I really dug. I forget who even said it. I think it might have been, I don't know who it was, but it was one of the side gangster guys, and he's arguing with his wife or his girlfriend, and he says, "You're like an albacore hanging around my neck."
I love it.
You know what I mean? And it was like that was like a perfect line because obviously it's albatross,
Yeah.
and this guy was like trying to be intelligent, but instead he said, "You have tuna hanging around my neck,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Damn, that's fucking good."
And
writing.
that's another big thing too. Like if we actually knew true organized crime members, especially in the mafia and La Cosa Nostra, these guys were fucking dummies. They were just dummies that pulled triggers. They really weren't intelligent. Maybe when you move up the ladder to the capos and the bosses, whatever, maybe, they were smart businessmen.
Yeah.
And as the years went on and as it became more of a business related thing, they knew their stuff and they weren't just thugs. But the majority of the mafia were just straight dumbbells.
Well, let me tell you something that I've learned about life.
Mm-hmm.
In my almost 36 of years of being on this fucking planet is that everybody's fucking idiots.
Yes.
And you might look at like certain, like, let's say giant corporations or government or something like that, and you think because you're not a part of it that these are like a bunch of smart ass motherfuckers in a room making decisions. If you're a fly on the wall in that room, you're fucking, you'll see how dumb these people are.
Oh, totally.
I worked for a giant corporation. Now, I'm not going to act like it was some like real important corporation or even like a Google or anything like that, but it was $1 billion corporation that had to make a lot of big money decisions. And at a certain point, I was in rooms with these big decision makers, that were beholden to people like Mitt Romney and shit, because Bain owned the company at some point. And
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And so like I'm in the room at some point with these people, and I was just thinking to myself, or I'd be on conference calls or whatever it may be, and I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, these people are making millions of dollars a year and making the decisions for this giant corporation because these people are fucking idiots. Like they would do the same kind of thing. Like they would say, yeah, there's an albacore around my neck, like they would, it was the same kind of thing. And you're like, oh man, like how
They couldn't understand simple grammar.
yeah, or they would write something and they would do the most infuriating thing in the world of not knowing which you're to use, or which they're to use or anything like that. Which I would like to also say, I know that I'm flopping all over the place here.
It's all right. It's what we do.
But I think I might be having mini strokes because the other day I was writing and I wrote the word what, right?
Okay.
And then I stared at the word what for a good, I'd say at least a solid minute. It felt like much more, but I'm going to say it was about 60 solid seconds where I stared at the word what that I just wrote, WHAT, and I did not know what the fuck it was. Have you ever had that happen before?
Yes, it happens with the word these.
These? That happens to you?
Yeah, that's a tough word for me. Sometimes I'll be like, is it two E's and an S-E, or is it an E? I always have a problem with the word these.
So you don't know how to spell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It like,
Yeah.
and I've had that happen before too. That happens a lot actually, where like it's a simple word that you know how to spell, but for some reason your brain starts fucking misfiring. But this was even weirder because I wrote the word what. I wrote it out. You know what I mean? So I wrote like what's going on because I was transcribing a Four Non Blondes song. No, I don't, but fucking I just wrote what's what, and then I stared at it and just could not comprehend what that word was.
Like what it meant?
What it meant, how it sounded, like it was, I went into this weird black hole of my brain. And then like, if I was a kid, I'd be like, all right, whatever. Maybe this is a fucking weed or, I'm just a fucking maniac.
Yeah.
But now as I'm getting older, I'm like, am I having a stroke? Am I going to have a fucking aneurysm tonight? Is everyone going to find me dead? Like, or I'm just going to start screaming, what, and then die? It freaked me out a little bit. It scared me a little bit.
Yeah, it is freaky. I remember this always sticks in my head. I want to say it was like probably about 3rd or 4th grade. And you know how, you read something, you do something, the teacher has you step up to the blackboard and write it out on the blackboard. And the name of the book, I was writing a book title on the board and the word baby was in it. And I'm sitting up at the blackboard like, baby. And then I write B-A-Y, B-A-Y. Baby. Yeah, and I'm like, that's not right. So I erase it, and I start writing something else, and it was something, and I hear everyone laughing, and I'm like, holy shit, I gotta look at the book. So I made it seem like I was going back to get like an eraser or some shit, and I peeked at the book, and I realized that it was just B-A-B-Y, and I was like, that is so weird. Like that, how in the world does that make baby?
So you're saying like
spelling.
You were very young at this point.
Yeah.
So you didn't.
But it was a word that I've written.
Oh, but you already knew. Right?
I had no problems with this word. I just stopped and I was thinking to myself, how is it spelled this way, and how does that even make sense? And I guess that contributes to the world saying that our language is one of the more difficult languages.
Right.
Which, looking at other languages, you can't see why because it's ours. But
I can see why.
I was having such problems with the word baby. Well, it's more with the grammar setup that people think that we're weird, not the actual spelling of words.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that's where my difficulty lies.
Well, I guess what we're saying here is that we're both fucking retarded.
Yes. It's what it is we have so much useful and amazing intelligence that we kind of take the little stuff there and we throw it aside. Just to make more room for the big stuff,
Okay, I'll take that so I don't end up killing myself.
That's what I continue to tell myself, just to make myself feel better.
It is a very weird thing, though. Like you fall into these like mind gaps sometimes, and I don't know. Like have you ever? This is gonna be so hard to even explain with words. But have you ever gotten into the thing where it's almost like you're thinking, but you're not thinking? It's almost like you're aware of the fact that you're thinking and that it's weird, and then the thinking is kind of taking place on another plane. And it happens to me a lot. Every once in a while, I'll start thinking about why humans exist, right? And it's not even something that I'll sit down. It's not like I'll sit down at the end of the night, turn off the light, you know what I mean, and then lay down and be like, why do humans exist? It's not that. Sometimes it'll just pop into my brain I'll picture the universe and I'll picture our planet, and it's just, I start thinking, why is it that whatever it is that we get to have life and that shit? So when I start thinking about that, and it's much deeper than that, but I'm so stupid that I cannot relate this to you people at home right now. I understand
where you're going.
But that throws my brain into this weird kind of loop, which is kind of the weird feeling that I got when I was looking at what and couldn't understand. And it's almost like an outer body experience where you like, you almost step out of yourself and like in your gears and your brain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Does that happen to you?
All the time.
Do you have something like deep and existential that you like ponder sometimes?
Well, I mean, everyone knows at this point that I'm fascinated by how we stick to the world and not fall off. The whole gravity thing.
So gravity's a big deal for you?
Yeah, gravity's a very big deal for me. And now we have a rapper. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the rapper B.O.B. And he's on this big kick right now where he's trying to convince the world. And what's that guy's name? Tyler DeGrassi? What the fuck's his name?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, that dude. Yeah. He's trying to convince him that the world is flat.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
But here's the fucking thing. I'm sorry, but we have science.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, that's cute, and you're trying to get your name out there, and it's probably like a PR move and everything like that.
Exactly.
But, like...
He probably has a song that's like, flat world or some shit.
But, I mean, I get it. Like, I don't know B.O.B., but I'm guessing he's a black gentleman.
He's
right?
a conscious nigga.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
and an intelligent gangster.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with a lot of black people, and I'm not saying this in any sort of racial way, but a lot of black people are really religious, and there's a lot of them out there, people that I know, people that I respect and have talked to, I've worked with, that believe that that evolution isn't true, and believe that the world is only 6,000 years old, and they believe all that because they're so religious.
That's amazing.
So right, to me, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Because I saw this thing on the internet where they do the evolution from monkey to man. Did you see that thing where they do that facial transformation to show the faces of man going from ape to man?
I've never seen an actual animation of it. I mean, we're all familiar with the monkey walking and turning into the man.
It wasn't like that at all. It was just a straight up face.
Right.
And it shows how the bone structure and other things on the face changed from monkey to man throughout the years of, from being on the planet. Right.
Right.
And there is one moment of time where man was actually Don Cheadle. And it was closer to the caveman days, of course.
Right.
But I'm talking fucking twin of Don Cheadle.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're trying to tell me that, this wasn't evolution, you're crazy, because Don Cheadle will tell you.
Yeah, I mean, right. But it's insane to me in the year 2016 that anybody would discount evolution like it doesn't exist.
I know. But you know what, man? I've seen a lot of shows out there. And I'm very big in the conspiracy thing, and I'll never take one answer to be true when it comes to things that how could we possibly know unless someone fucking wrote it in exact words, and even that wouldn't even tell us the truth. We need solid evidence, and we don't. We mostly speculate. I'm a big believer in science, but at the same time, when those shows tell me that there was some type of alien influence that helped us evolve, kind of a believer.
Well, there's no proof against that.
I know.
It's a wild theory.
I know.
But if you were to talk to any scientist, none of them could disprove the fact that well, number one, it's almost a fact now that alien life forms do exist.
Of course.
Right?
How can they fucking not?
No,
we're the only planet out of all of those galaxies that has one planet that's close enough to a sun to give life, because that's all it is.
Right, when it's not. So if the universe is infinite in the way that they feel that it is, if there's that many stars and that many planets out there floating around, there has to be another Earth. Meaning there has to be a place where if, and this is a big if, our circumstances here on Earth, so the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide and the water and everything that mixes together, the gases and everything that produce life, if this is the only circumstance that life could exist in, there has to be another planet out there with those same circumstances. Therefore, there has to be. Right. So this is, we all know this. But what I was going to say is that science, that can't disprove that, but it also can't prove the fact that people have ever come to Earth. Like those planets might be so far away, and all that shit's very interesting. But the thing with evolution is like science has pretty much proven evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like I've gotten much more spiritual as I get older, but I'm definitely not an organized religion type person.
I understand. Yeah.
And so the only thing that I'm ever looked to believe is hard science. Mm-hmm. If you through numbers and through whatever can prove it to me that this is what happened, then you have to believe it. And at least that's as far as I go with it.
No, I totally believe you too. I mean, of course, I believe that there's nothing wrong with having a religion. Having religion's a great thing. Having faith is a great thing. It makes you feel better as a person. It gives you hope. It gives you, nothing but positivity. But once you turn that positivity into, an evangelistic type thing where you're slicing people down and cutting them apart for what they don't believe in, of course it becomes negative. But it's always good to have something to believe in to make you better as a person yourself.
Give me something to believe in.
Exactly. Even Brett Michaels.
that was Poison, right? For some reason, I thought that was Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, okay. So Sopranos, I like it so far. I'll let you know as I get further into it. How many seasons are there?
I think 6 or 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it went from 99, 2000 to like 2007, 2000, around that time.
Doesn't Steve Buscemi show up at some point?
Yeah,
okay.
that's when things start getting good.
I was looking forward to that because I was like, all right, where my Buscemi at? And then he wasn't there, and I was like, oh.
There's one scene where Buscemi's walking down the block. He needs money. He wants to start up this massage parlor or just something like that. And a car speeds around the block getting chased by the cops. They throw a duffel bag out the window into the woods. He opens up the duffel bag, mad cash and crack. And it's like, why the fuck can't that happen to me? Why can't I find a big bag of money and crack? And then he throws out the crack. I'm like, bro, that's like throwing out money. Sell the crack. What's wrong with you?
Maybe he didn't want to get caught with a bunch of crack.
He was on probation. But at the same time, give it to somebody who'll sell it. Do it at a wholesale price. You're just making more money.
All right, stop ruining for me.
I'm sorry.
I'm
That's
gonna
just
get there.
one scene that I'm very passionate about because it's why can't I find the goddamn duffel bag? I'll walk the streets every night for the rest of my life until I find the damn duffel bag.
You know why? Because that's a television show, and that shit doesn't happen in real life.
I'm sure it's happened to somebody before. I would not doubt it.
Another interesting thing about the...
Remember when we found that bag of chocolate Thai?
We did, yes.
Right around the block from your house.
That is
and
very
that
true.
shit was banging.
I was afraid to smoke it, and the small amount of times that I've found things
Drugs.
like consumables in life that you would might be want to consume, I've always been afraid. It's like
even when we found that fresh pack of smokes.
No, fresh pack of smokes is fine because that was
a score.
Or as you called them, freshy
new
newbies.
kicks.
Oh, fresh new kicks.
Fresh new kicks.
What was I going to say? Oh, the other cool thing about The Sopranos is they recorded. I'm fucking retarded. They filmed a bunch, at least in the first season, a bunch of those scenes, like literally in my neighborhood that I used to live in.
Oh yeah,
so
I thought they were in like West Caldwell.
Well, I think they're supposed to be, but a lot of the scenes are in downtown Jersey City.
Yeah, to get the more city look.
Like there's one scene where
the carnival,
the guy dies of cancer, and they are having his funeral.
Okay.
And the FBI is there and they're taking pictures.
Yes.
That cemetery, it was 3 minutes away from my apartment.
Yeah.
You know, I used to walk past that cemetery every day.
I know the one you're talking about.
You know, so that's cool. It's like I'm looking at my neighborhood from a little bit before I moved there, which was very
It's like
cool.
watching a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah, right, exactly, kind of. Yeah, you see the fucking
the clown.
The clown,
Yeah.
which was also something 3 minutes away from where I used to live.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So speaking of New Jersey and drugs, let's say.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to bring this up to you. Mm-hmm. Over the weekend, I was hanging out with some friends, and the conversation of, as it does a lot, of heroin and the abuse of heroin in this area came up.
And how it's gone through the fucking roof.
Unbelievably through the roof.
Yeah.
And so normally, like, I've tried to deal with this front on. One of the main reasons we're doing this podcast is based on that main thing, you know?
And just for a quick update, I'm doing better than I probably have done in a really long time.
Yeah, you're trying, right?
Yes, I'm trying. I've been trying, but as far as progress goes, I've reached a point where, I have nothing but the desire to move forward from this fucking thing, and I feel like I'm doing much better than I have. But anyway, let's continue. Let's get it off me.
That's good. That's a
I
good
just
thing
wanted to
know.
throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, no, this is all part of it. So feel free to talk about your own situation,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
But what hit me hard, like, there's people out there that I know that are drug addicts, and I'm not a prude when it comes to drugs. You know, it's not like I'm sitting from some pedestal and being like, oh my God, how could these people do this? I understand drugs. If we want to get political about it, I believe that all drugs should be legal. And they should put more money into counseling and stuff like that. I'm on that side of things. I'm that weird liberal. But what had happened was my friend that I was hanging out with was telling me that somebody who I've known for my whole life, who I respect a lot, and it was just somebody that I just never would have expected would have gotten into drugs.
Does not discriminate, my friend.
I know, and I know that. That's why I'm trying to set this up by saying that I'm not a prude when it comes to drugs. Mm-hmm. I understand that, and like, but this person was like never even really drank, like she would hang out, and then like when everybody started getting too fucked up, she'd dip, and shit like that. And I found out that she's like fucked up on heroin. She's living with some dude, and they're both fucked up on heroin.
Yeah.
And they're just at their house, holed up, just fucking shooting dope. Yeah. And for some reason, it just hit me really hard. Why
wouldn't it though? It's a friend of yours. It's someone you've cared about for a long time, and of course it's gonna hit you hard because number one, you wouldn't expect it from that person, and number two, it's not good to hear about anybody.
Right? It's
anybody at all.
It's not good to hear about anybody. But a lot of people around here that are doing it, that I know that are fucked up on it, I kind of just like, okay, that sucks, but I kind of see how that would happen. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You kind of accept it. You're just like, all right, well, that's the path you've been going down your whole life. Now you're here. You started from the bottom, and now you're here.
Yeah.
But this was a total shock to me. It would be like the last person in the world that I'd ever expect. And then you said to me, I text you about it, and I said, do you know that this is going on? And you were just kind of made it seem like, yeah, like you didn't know about that. Like she's been this way forever. And I guess the reason that I'm bringing this up is that it hammered home to me how bad this area, and when I say this area, I'm talking about Monmouth County, New Jersey, where we're sitting in right now, has become with this fucking drug. It's beyond epidemic levels of drug abuse, where it's almost like people have just given up hope, and they're just this is what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because let me just use this person as an example.
Okay.
Right. She was a smart chick.
Mm-hmm. Very smart. Very smart.
Had a plan from the day that we graduated high school about what she was going to do with her life.
Yeah.
A bachelor's degree, master's degree, good job, makes good money, comes from a good family. And I know that, I know that like all this isn't like indicative of like you shouldn't do drugs, you know what I mean? Because like there's many people out there that do that. But I even knew her. I even spent some time with her as far as, let's say, the end of like 2007, 2008, when we were like 27, 28 years old. And working, doing great, everything like that. Hadn't talked to her in a long time. Come back now we're in our mid 30s, and she's a fucking heroin addict.
Yeah.
And I started thinking to myself, how could this possibly like happen to this person?
Right.
And I think I think what it speaks to. All right. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there are some people that just are going to be heroin addicts, or just some people are just going to be drug addicts. And I have nothing against those people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting here with you. You've been struggling with this for a while. You're my best friend. I'm doing this podcast with you. I love you, and I want you to get better. But I accept the fact that this is something that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know? I don't disassociate. If I met somebody and they were a heroin addict and they were cool, we would still hang out as long as they didn't rob me or lie to me or anything like that. Like, it's not that type of thing. But like, to hear this from this person really started to make me think, like, how could this happen? Mm-hmm. And I think what it is, and I might be, and this is why I wanted to talk about it, because you're the expert here. Mm-hmm. I think that it speaks to kind of the hopelessness of I don't want to get too grand with it, but probably the hopelessness of America right now. Where we're in this weird transition where jobs are going away.
That does have a lot to do with it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Jobs are going away. Degrees don't mean as much as they did. Mm-hmm. Everybody's piled with student debt.
You really have no sense of achievement, no sense of, like self pride. Mm-hmm. And that could be a big part to it, as you were saying, but continue.
No, that's what I'm getting at. I'm just saying, this in my rationalization, which I've been having for the past day or two since I heard this news about it, it's really been on my mind a lot. I care for this person very much, even though I haven't talked to her in a very long time. I consider her a very good friend, and besides you. Besides when I started realizing that you were going through this has been like the biggest blow to me, hearing about this. Yeah. Again, there's been a million people that I know that have succumbed to heroin. Some of them have died. Some of them are in jail. Some of them are just living, basic lives, just fucked up and barely maintaining.
Yeah.
And I feel for every single one of them. But
The closer it is to home, the more it affects.
Yeah, I'm just like, but again, some of them I'm just like, okay, that sucks. I hope they get better, but they were kind of going that way anyway.
Yeah.
This to me was like a complete 180. And so again, I'm just sitting there thinking because I feel those pressures, you know, I worked a job that I hated forever just so I can make money, just so I could afford to live and have an apartment and everything like that. I dug my way out of the student loan debt. I still right now kind of don't have a direction. You know, I'm working a job that's okay. I'm doing this podcast, which is working or whatever. But you know, I'm still in that class of I'm in my mid 30s. I'm approaching 40 very quickly, and I don't know what I'm doing in my life. And there's that stress there, right? So, and I think there's a general stress all over the place that people are having with that. But I didn't ever once think I'm going to start doing dope. You know what I mean? So what is it that?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's one thing that leads you to doing dope. As many people know, it started out with the prescription drugs, whether it's people jumping into their parents' medicine cabinets, whether it's a friend giving it to you. You never know what's going to lead you to heroin. That's the last thing on your mind. Even the first pill I ever took, I never thought it would lead me to heroin. I was actually even a person that didn't even like taking medicine. I wouldn't even like, headache is one thing, you're hungover, you take aspirin. I wouldn't like taking medications, period. Mm-hmm. I was like against that shit.
Yeah, I remember that because I'm the same way. I'm still the same way. But
yeah, that was my whole thing. And then what had happened was the same old tale. You know, I work construction. I hurt my back. It was getting to a point where we really had to grind to finish the job we were doing. And a boss of mine said, listen, just take this pill and I promise you'll be able to finish out the day no problem.
Okay, well, when was it? What year is that?
I'm talking 2007.
2007. Yeah. Okay, so you're 27. Mm-hmm. And
I was actually 26. But anyway.
Yeah, okay, 26, 27. And what was the pill?
It was an OxyContin.
Okay. Sure. I'm familiar with that.
40 milligrams of OxyContin.
Okay.
And I've never taken anything like that before. I took it, and let me tell you, it was like I had nothing wrong. My back problem went away. My knee problem went away. And I was able to finish out the day of work with no problem, probably at a better speed than I was without the drug.
Okay.
So I finished out the day, but that's not what led to my addiction. I took that pill, and I didn't even think about it again.
Right. Now, during this time, which I'm sure you were because we were hanging out during this time,
yeah.
You're drinking, you're smoking weed,
yeah.
maybe the occasional line of coke, maybe the occasional E tablet,
like
normal people, shit, right?
Okay. And I was even done with E. That was old news at that point,
right?
I was done with E probably 6-7 years before that.
Yeah, right.
But
I'm just saying drugs that are a little bit more socially acceptable.
Exactly.
Weekend drugs,
yeah, so
recreational. drugs.
The pills started making their way into society. And I had no desire to get into it. It wasn't something I was like, oh yeah, this was the bomb. You know, I did it and didn't think about it again until like the same situation arose where I hurt myself. I had to take it again just to feel better. And this went on probably for about a year and a half. And then I actually started looking for them.
Okay.
And OxyContin really wasn't my thing. I was more into the oxycodone, which is instead of it, what OxyContin means, it means the end of after the word oxy, it's, a lot of people say Oxycontin. It's OxyContin, right. Meaning continual. It's a continual release that gradually administers the drug throughout you. So it's smaller doses through a longer period of time.
Okay.
What oxycodone is you get that motherfucker all at once and you're high as shit.
It just punches you in the face.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So once I found the little blue pill, then I was like, wow, this is fucking great. You know, it took all my pains away. I was able to work with no problem, no back pain all day long.
So let me, not to interrupt, but so the oxycodone, those are what people refer to as blues.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that is always the one that I hear.
That's the most famous out of the pills.
That's the one that sets everybody off.
Yeah, okay. No doubt.
All right.
So once I found that, I was like, this is a fucking wonder drug. You know, I wasn't aware of the long-term effects. I didn't know you could withdraw off of that like you would off of heroin. Mm-hmm. I knew it was a synthetic form of heroin, but I had no idea about withdrawals.
Right.
So I would take those because of my back pain, because of my knee pain. I had I had a choice, but at the same time, my performance at work was much better because of these pills.
Right. So you were taking these pills more to get yourself through the workday than you were to kick back and watch a movie and have sex or whatever.
No way. And what it actually does is you can't come on these pills.
Right. Okay.
You know, you can get a hard on, but you can't come,
Right.
which sucks. Sometimes I've had to spit on my girlfriend's back and fake it. So you know,
Just throw some fucking yogurt.
Exactly. So
That's why you have that Yoplait next to your bedstand.
hell yeah. So it became a work thing. And then, you know, these things are not cheap, man. At the time when I first started doing them, they were $15 a pill. And in some places now, people are paying $30 a pill for these fucking things.
Right. And now how long do one of these last? Let's say you eat one of these.
It depends. I started out as eating them, and then I started sniffing them, which was really stupid to do. But when you sniff them, there's no waiting game.
Right.
You sniff it, 30 seconds later, you're high.
Got it.
You eat it, you gotta wait at least 45 minutes.
Right.
So because of being at work and not having that half hour to spare, really, I would just sniff them just because I could get right back to work and start kicking ass right away.
Right.
You know?
And it's not like sniffing something was like foreign. I mean, like, you know, there's been coke and ketamine and stuff like that. So it's not like you were like some innocent person who was like, I've never put anything on my nose. That's a kind of understandable progression. You know, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
And so, you know, that was that. And I still wasn't addicted because I did say, wow, you know, I started getting a feeling to where when I wasn't taking them, I would get nauseous. You know, I would feel not the extreme withdrawal feelings that people feel, but I started feeling them and I started getting worried. So I stopped for a little while and there was no struggle. I just stopped. And then time went on. The winter went through. I wasn't working. I went back to work. My back was just on fire. You know, I'm a little dude and I do the work of a giant,
right.
You know, because I just don't. That's just the way that I was taught, and I was just always pushing myself to the extreme limits at work.
For people at home who don't know, Richie's a lumberjack.
Yes. So of course the pills came back to my life, and I started taking them every day, and that's when things started going really downhill. I would take the pills every day.
So, okay, so what time, when is this now? From the day that you took your first pill to now things are officially going downhill and you know it, how long of a time
I became
is that?
super addicted to these pills in 2009. I mean, I was taking them for years, but I knew that I was fully addicted in 2009.
Okay.
And I was taking them every day, and everyone knows how expensive these things that takes them, knows how expensive they are, and you end up your paycheck might as well be giving to you in blues.
Okay.
At this point.
Also, let me ask this: how were you procuring these things? Obviously, you didn't have a
doctor,
a prescription for
them.
No,
I was buying them off the street, and buying them off the streets is extremely expensive.
Right. But there's also a whole syndicate of doctors that I know it was a lot worse probably 8 years ago when this whole thing kind of popped off.
Yeah.
But
that was also the glory days where you could go to like 3 different doctors.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And I know people that did that had all these doctors and these setups, and they would buy them under the table, and a lot of doctors ended up getting busted.
Yeah.
But that is, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least include the fact that there was a bunch of doctors, PhDs, people that are supposed to be in charge of keeping you healthy that were giving these drugs to even teenagers at this time in order to line their own pockets without any sense of morals or anything.
Exactly.
Okay.
These doctors were charging up to $200, $250 just for the visit.
Right.
And then if you didn't have insurance, obviously, you would go to fill this prescription, and based on what your count was, being from 60 to 180, it would come close to almost $300 just to fill the prescription.
Right.
So you're paying a lot of money for these things.
Right.
But you are paying more off the street based on your addiction. But, you know, going to a pharmacy, you're paying out your ass.
Okay.
So in 2009, I became completely addicted. And I couldn't go a day without them. If I did, I'd get really sick.
Right.
So a year later, I found out that there was the wonderful world of heroin that is much more cheaper than these pills and gives you the same, if not better effect than these pills. And to me, that put in my head that, you know, heroin's not such a dirty thing if it's the same thing that you're getting from the pharmacy, only in pill form. Because if you feel it the same exact way, how is it not the same drug just because it's controlled by the FDA?
Right, sure, and which is a valid point. It's not. It's for anybody out there who believes that Oxycontin or oxycodone
isn't heroin,
isn't just legal heroin.
Yeah, it's morphine.
That these companies are making money off of. Those drugs weren't created to help people in any way. Those drugs are created to get people addicted, so that these
ease the pain.
It's basically legalized drug dealing. Right?
Exactly what it is.
And the fact that doctors out there would prescribe these drugs to children is unbelievable. That happens as well.
Yeah, they just approved 10-year-olds to get Oxycontin.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And all that is lobbying from what's called big pharma, which even though I hate saying that because I feel like I'm a tree hugger, but just to make money, just to keep to keep the poorer people and the middle class down. Okay,
exactly.
Go on, continue.
So I found heroin, and it was much more cheaper.
Okay, so
and that was my big thing.
Can I ask you how did this come across? Right, so was there somebody that you're hanging out with that was doing it, or did you actively go seeking it because you couldn't afford the blues anymore?
Well, what happened was we had hired a new guy at work who was a heroin addict.
Okay.
And he said, "Why are you taking these things when you can be taking this, which is much cheaper?" I was like, "I'll give it a try."
Right.
I gave it a try. Of course, I didn't shoot it. I sniffed it.
Right.
But it was cheaper and better.
So it actually felt better.
Yeah.
Than the oxycodone.
Yeah, it helped. It helped with the pain.
Right.
The pain didn't exist.
Right.
It was just like taking the pill. It was instant, and my money wouldn't dwindle as fast as it once did.
And you were still effective at work while doing heroin?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't take it to the point where I was falling asleep at work and doing all that shit. No. I would take just enough to where I could perform, and my work was actually going much better.
Right.
It's not like I was, I wasn't presenting PowerPoints and, doing crunching numbers for the stock market. I was doing construction.
I get it.
Just stuff to, back-breaking work.
Yeah.
So this actually helped a lot, and I didn't have any problems at work. So I would just, dabble here and there with the heroin. It was a lot cheaper, and it made it better. And I'm sure no matter what your job is, no matter what you're doing, this has been... Besides, maybe nowadays kids are jumping straight to the heroin, but this is the most common progression of how it's happened.
At least in this last resurgence of it, I would believe that is what it is. Because the more people that I talk to that are struggling with this now, most of them seem like they've gone the same route.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the point when you started to actually do heroin, was there so you said, it made you feel better at work. But you were already hooked on some sort of morphine, right? So, do you think psychologically you were just kind of that, like you said before, the thing where you're like, well, this is actually the same thing as this, and just because this is FDA regulated and this isn't, this doesn't mean that this is a dirty drug. But we grew up, even me and you who have experimented with drugs, we're in bands and we've done everything. I mean, I've always grown up just thinking you just don't do heroin. Do everything else. You don't do heroin.
I always thought that same exact way.
Right. So do you think that there was some sort of psychological compromise that you were making with yourself at that time?
Absolutely. My compromise was I've already been doing it through these pills. What's the difference?
Right. So your barrier there of when you would normally look at somebody who did heroin or the drug heroin itself and think okay, I'm not going to cross that line. You had kind of already teetered on that line, so then you kind of convinced yourself that it was okay.
It was
to cross
okay.
That line.
Yeah, it was okay. I'm not going to harm myself anymore.
Right.
I'm never going to shoot it. I'm never going to overdose. I do it just for this reason, and I'm okay.
Right.
And, and of course, like anyone knows, it started taking a toll on my personal life.
Sure.
Bills weren't getting paid. Family was noticing a difference. Like I've told you before, I've never beaten anyone for money. I've never asked for a loan to get my drugs. I've never stolen anything. I've never, all the stereotypical things that go along with being a drug addict. I would never sink myself to that level because I would never want it to be.
Yeah.
If I couldn't get my drugs and I had no resources to get my drugs, I suffered.
Right.
I would never take it to a point where I wouldn't let my addiction, besides maybe the emotional family thing, I would never let my addiction affect others.
Right.
Ever.
And I could attest to that. I believe that what you're saying there is true.
Have I ever asked you for $1?
No, right.
And if it ever came to that point, you would be the first person I would come to be like, "Can I borrow $50?"
Yeah.
You know?
No, I get
so
that.
I've never ever brought that to that point.
But you are in the very, very small minority when it comes to that.
I know, and trust me, I know. But eventually, that started snowballing. Like I said, bills weren't getting paid. My job was suffering. I would come out to hang out with you guys, and because a lot of you guys, you thought I was on drugs straight up, but a lot of it did have to do with work. I was doing drugs at work all day. So, of course, when I came out at night, I was just fucking dead tired. Mm-hmm. I wasn't on the drugs anymore. I worked in the hot sun all day on drugs.
Right.
So, of course, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start to fall asleep.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We don't even have to go into that.
Yeah, we don't have to, but I'm just like...
Well, I personally was naive about it because there was a long time where I knew you were fucked up, but I thought you were just fucked up on the pills. I remember me and you even had a...
Well, at that time, I didn't really start doing heroin until the point where I stopped hanging out.
Yeah, right.
I was just on pills.
No, I know, but I'm even talking after that because I remember at one point, now this is a few years ago now, so you were heavy into it at this point, and I had called you. We had kind of started talking again. We hadn't talked in a while, probably over a year, and I called you. And you were really kind of reaching out at that point and wanting to get clean.
Yeah.
And you were real emotional. And I remember me and you had a long talk on the phone. And I was ignorant of the whole situation because what I used to always say when we would talk about you is I would be like, oh, those fucking pills, those fucking blues. Like I would always be like, what annoys me about Ritchie being all fucked up is that he's doing these stupid drugs like a stupid housewife. I was like, what? I was like, if he's gonna
that makes sense.
I was like, if he's gonna be that fucked up, why doesn't he just be a man and just do heroin and get it over with? I had no idea that and I said that to you during this conversation, and I
don't remember that.
And I remember saying, I was like, Ritchie, the thing that bothers me the most is you're fucking around with these stupid pills like you're some fucking abused housewife. I was like, why don't you just do heroin? And I remember you just stopped and you're like, yeah, that's what I do. And I was just like, I remember being like, fuck.
Well, the first time I remember actually being on or doing heroin around you guys was your Halloween party at your Jersey City apartment.
Right. Which we've had a few of those. So what year was this?
The one where I slept over and got us all breakfast in the morning. And
okay.
Yeah, because I remember I dropped like 5 bags of heroin in your toilet. I wanted to kill myself.
Thanks for telling me this now on the podcast. But I mean, okay, so that had to be a few years ago.
That was Halloween 2013.
Okay.
That's when my heroin addiction really started.
That's when it started.
Like 2012.
Uh-huh.
Well, I started, dabbling in 2010, 2011, but in 2012, I really I would still do the pills, and I never really stopped doing the pills, but it was more of just like a side thing if I couldn't really get heroin. But, around 2013, it became 2012, 2013, it became just strictly heroin.
Right. And
I still haven't even shot it yet at this point.
Okay. Right. So
I was really just sniffing it.
Right. But it was bad enough that it was a problem.
Of course.
So what brought you from which is I believe it probably is the last step, like that is like, because you even can bring yourself up to that line. So you're like, okay, I'm gonna fuck around with weed, I'm gonna fuck around with booze and coke and ecstasy and ketamine and all this stupid shit, but I'm never gonna touch heroin, right? And then you start doing the pills and you're like, oh, I really like this feeling and I feel sick when I don't do it and I don't have this much money. So you start rationalizing to yourself, well, heroin can't be that bad. I'm already kind of doing it in pill form, right? But I'm never going to shoot it. I'm just going to start sniffing it, right?
Yeah.
So then you cross that line and now you're sniffing heroin and then that becomes your main thing. At what point do you say I need to start actually injecting this into my veins?
It really just doesn't happen. Like, it's not like a decision that just clicks in your brain. I kind of just did it just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I never wanted to do it, but I would always think to myself, if it's this good sniffing it, I can't imagine how good it could possibly be shooting it.
Weren't you afraid of?
I was definitely afraid.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of needles. I was always the guy that went to the doctor and had to watch them do it because I was just, just to see. And it never bothered me. I never had a problem with needles. So I think from that made it easier for me. And, I just wanted just out of curiosity, I wanted to see what it was like. And I really liked it.
Yeah. Okay.
Really liked it a lot.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, and I'm sure that's a general consensus.
Yeah.
People aren't getting hooked on this drug because it makes them feel bad. People are getting hooked on this drug because it makes them feel really fucking good.
Yeah.
But then they have to maintain after that.
And that's what makes people suicidal. That's what makes people hate their lives. And that's what makes you feel like there's no coming back.
Right. And so, I mean, thank you for going through your whole process there.
Yeah. I mean, because it's the only one I know. I'm sure a lot of people have similar processes and can relate to that. But I don't enjoy talking about myself like that. But I feel like if I talk about what I know, then maybe everyone gets the big picture and can relate or see where the flaws are and kind of improve.
Right.
So, and I really have, that's who I am at this point. I'm not proud of it. I hate it. I try and improve it every day of my life. It's one of the hardest things ever that anyone could possibly go through, I think. And, whatever, that's who I am at this point. And I have no problem talking about it because it doesn't make me a bad person.
No,
I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not doing anything harmful to anybody except myself, and maybe loved ones are upset about it. But at the same time, what am I going to do? Fucking snap my fingers and say, oh, I'm so sorry I'm doing this to everybody. Let me just be a better person. No, I'm really trying for myself. And if that's not good enough, then you obviously don't even care. So whatever.
Sure. And I think I take that position with you. This whole podcast was kind of sparked from the point of, I wanted to try to help you get out of your rut while I was in this area. This is something creative we could do.
Yeah.
It's kind of taken on a life of its own now, and this is great. And we don't even really discuss the heroin thing as much, although we consistently will because it's a big part of it. But I wouldn't ever blame anybody. The only time that I get mad at junkies is if they're robbing and stealing and lying.
Exactly.
Like we had an ex-band member who has since passed away.
Yeah.
But we had to deal. He was a junkie. He was a junkie before anybody was a junkie. That we knew. And he was always constantly lying and robbing and stealing. You never knew what was true. You never blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And that was always the bad taste that I had in my mouth,
Right.
But
I care too much about my friends and my family and things that I do have that are positive to combine those worlds.
Right.
I mean, me being high somewhere in my mind isn't combining worlds. Me stealing from somebody or me doing something, that is really bringing that bad part of your life into the good part of your life.
Yeah.
And to me, I like to keep them completely separate.
Well, yeah.
But
But
sometimes if I'm high and someone calls me, I don't even want to answer the phone.
yeah, sure.
No,
I get that. But I mean, you do also have to respect the fact that, let's say, your brothers or me or somebody like that, is worried about the fact that you are high someplace because it's not the safest thing to do.
I understand.
Like shit could go sideways quick. So it's not like okay, as long as he's out of our sight, out of sight, out of mind, kind of thing.
Right.
You have to respect both sides.
I
of
know.
it.
I understand it.
Yeah.
I totally understand it.
I guess what I was asking you and your story kind of helped is how somebody, because you're kind of the same thing as this person that I'm talking about, actually you're probably even more understandable that you've gone this route just because of the history of boozing and the person I'm talking about, as far as I know, wasn't ever even into that, and it's like it's just.
Well, I was never into boozing.
No, the person that I started this conversation that I was talking about.
Oh, right.
Our friend that I just found out the other day. And so I guess the reason that I brought this up is that I'm sure everybody has their individual story, but the more and more I hear about it, it kind of seems like the same thing. It's the pills from the doctors into not being able to afford it, into the fucking heroin. And before you know it, people who never in their wildest dreams would have ever thought that they were going to be heroin addicts. Because I guarantee you this girl that we know that I'm talking about, I don't know when she started doing it or whatever.
And you know for a fact she does heroin.
That's what I was told.
That's what you're told.
And I'm sure that she does, but even not, the general metaphor is out there. Mm-hmm. Everybody has that person in their life. that you hear that is fucked up on heroin. I'm sure you've been that person for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That you're just like, what? How the fuck did that happen? And more as I've been.
I feel like I'm not that surprising though.
Okay, well, whatever.
I've always been a little like, over the top when it came to inebriation.
Yeah, no, I understand. But what I'm saying is that everybody has that person in their life, or multiple of them.
Yeah.
And for me, you were that person. Because me and you would always get messed up together, but I never thought that you would take that final jump.
I know.
You know?
I never thought so either.
Right. But the more and more I hear about people, it's almost like I go out to a bar, I talk to a few people, and
you find out a new person that's on heroin
every single fucking time.
That's how it is.
It's just becoming this area that, I grew up in this area. I've come back to this area as kind of a sabbatical to get my life together, and it's great and it's working, and I'm looking forward to getting the fuck out of here. But which is another thing. We'll talk about that next episode because we're running out. But I've officially started my descent into minimalism. But we'll talk about that next episode.
Okay.
But to come back after all these years, and it wasn't like I was in California or something, but still I was separated from it. I didn't know the severity of the situation. And to see people that I grew up with that are still in their hometown, just fucked up on heroin, it's crazy. This is, we're not in our 20s. We're in our fucking 30s. We're pushing. We're on the bad half of 30 too. We're getting closer to 40.
And the bad half. Yeah, that's right.
And more and more and more. It's just more of that. And I guess there's no answer to it. But I guess by bringing this up, the question that I at least wanted to raise was: is there more out there that's making this happen? Is it the economical strain? Is it people's just general hopelessness? Is it some widespread depression? Is it or is it a bunch of people with weak heads who couldn't party right? I mean, and what is?
I could tell you my personal. I mean, I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, right.
But I'm going to tell you where I come from.
Okay.
Where I would say my heavy drug addiction began when we stopped playing music.
Right.
And it sounds like a cop-out excuse, you know what I mean? But if it was a cop-out excuse, I could say it was because my mom died.
Right.
I could say it was because I had a broken home and I wasn't fucking hugged enough. But
Right.
that is all just cop-out excuses that people use for their drug addiction.
Right.
But what I'm going to say is, when I lost the passion of my life, that was music.
Right.
When I stopped playing music, I had to fill a void.
Right.
And from being so depressed and feeling like I failed and feeling like I couldn't do what I wanted to do, not that drugs did fill that void, but what it did was it just made me feel like everything was going to be okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's what it was, pretty much. I mean, yeah, like my back hurt, this, that, and the other thing. But then from taking the drugs to help my back pain, it also helped my mental pain.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess when you find something that can do that, which is so easy to do that, besides easy on your wallet, but when it's something that easy, you turn to it. And it's almost like a psychologist in a little pill.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, all narcotics are an escape,
Yeah.
Like, again, I'm not sitting here I drink way too. I do two things. One's legal and very harmful. One's illegal and not
so
harmful whatsoever. Yeah. And those are the two things that I do. On the spectrum of intoxication, they're very, very, very low.
Yeah. And let me tell you, Dev, I dream of the person that could sit down, have a cocktail, and smoke weed and be okay with it. That's my dream to be that person. I hate the fact that I do drugs. I go through these peaks and valleys where I'm like, you know what? This is who I am. I'm just going to be a drug addict and go through my life the best that I can without having to conquer this thing. But then I'm like, who the fuck am I kidding?
Right.
It's not me. I'm not that person. I'm sucking out all my creativity. I'm ruining the person I am by doing this drug. I am going to be that guy that just drinks and smokes weed. Mm-hmm. I am going to go through the suffering and take care of it. It's just, I really wish this fucking suffering was not so intense.
Right.
Because it really fucking is. It's not just physical. The physical shit, I can eat that more than anything. If someone's going to tell you, oh, the physical, you throw up, it's like the flu, you're a bunch of bitches. You know for a fact that that's not what keeps you on heroin. What keeps you on heroin is that you are mentally addicted to doing heroin.
Right. It's like kicking any addiction, cigarettes or anything like that. And I think we've even discussed this on an earlier podcast, and I believe that to be true. If the whole thing of kicking heroin was just people didn't want to go through the pain of withdrawal and detox, then a lot more people would kick it. But I think it's that mixed with the fact that you really deep down inside don't want to stop doing that.
Right, right. Because that's what they always say. Like, when you're ready to stop, you stop. Right.
And so we got to wrap this up soon because we're going over. But the whole thing, it's been boiling for a very long time. I started this episode. I had a bunch of stats on my phone I was going to bring up. I didn't even bring those up. But
we have time. We could always talk some other time about it.
Yeah, right. But even just, and I'm using New Jersey as an example.
Because we're the cesspool right now.
Right. But I'm sure there's a million other places in the United States.
Real quick, the biggest problem with that is that we are the hub of where the heroin comes into this country. And there's, when in different parts of the country, there are different types of heroin, but the heroin that we get is the most pure. Because of where the docks that it comes into, where there is accessibility, we have the best heroin in this country. The heroin that we get can be sold in Colorado and the Midwest for triple the amount that we buy it for.
Right. And it's probably been stepped on and everything since then.
It's different type of heroin.
Yeah, right.
The heroin we get is called China White, and I'm flying these shrimp in the air.
Yeah.
They call it China White. And
Are you sure you weren't grabbing 2 dicks with your fingers right there?
2 small dicks. It's called China White, and people fucking love it, and that's, people die from it and shit because it's so goddamn pure. And when you go out west, people get, that black tar heroin. They get this shit called not gunpowder. I forget what it's called, but it's like this shit you got to mix with water just to sniff it, and it's dog shit, and they hate it. And to get the dope that we get, they'd pay triple the amount that we pay. But it's just the heroin that we get into New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York is the most incredible heroin you could get in the United States of America.
Right. And so you think that that's also aiding the whole
the
fact that
ODs.
This area,
yeah,
and also I think that there's been a denigration of the suburbs. I think that there's a paradigm shift that's happening where it used to be that all the poverty and everything was in the city, and then once anybody got a little bit of money, they'd move out to the suburbs. But in our lifetime, we've seen that reverse.
Yes,
where all the poverty, and I could even say, and I know we're going way over here, and we'll wrap up soon, but
okay.
I could say even coming back here, this has never been an affluent area. I mean, this town that we're in right now, it's a decent town. It's not poverty, but it's not also overly wealthy.
Right.
But at least the people that I saw growing up in this area were upper middle class people.
Yeah, decent families.
I'm now, since I've been back here, that is not what I see here.
Right.
I see a lot of extreme poverty. A lot of people I go to the supermarket and I see people that are like in ripped sweatpants and like looking.
Oh, that's always been that way, man.
No, I'm talking about you would
curlers in the hair.
Like if you were to take a video camera to the local ShopRite or something like that.
You think it's worse than it used to be?
Yes, it certainly
really
is. Yeah, I could feel it.
I think we just notice it more because we're older, but I feel like this area has always been high in the WT.
I think that right. Well, no, there's definitely been white trash elements here. I'm not trying to act like it wasn't.
Right.
What I'm saying is that there's very much more so now than there was, and I think that that's a continuing trend. But is that it? So with that, does the heroin addiction come with that, or does the heroin addiction cause that? You see, these right? I know. I'm not asking for exact answers
right,
here.
I understand.
These are just questions that I'm putting out to the world.
Yeah,
And if anybody out there, again, we talk to this from time to time. Ritchie's suffering and trying to get through this, and if there's anybody out there that is suffering and trying to get through this thing, or has any more insight on this whole situation,
give an alias name. I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, right. Feel free to email us, awkward AHI5 podcast.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Or I can email you back.
Right.
That'll just show me how to do that.
Sure. Well, yeah, what'll happen is I'll sit here and type and you'll walk back and forth in a room and dictate it to me.
Exactly.
No, but yeah, email us, awkwardhi5podcast@gmail.com. All that stuff. But we got to get going. And thank you for being so honest about that.
No problem.
Episode.
That's all I want to be.
And people who listen to this podcast probably don't know which way is which, because one episode we're screaming and acting like we're Biggie Smalls, and the next episode we're having an after-school special about drug addiction.
Hey,
but
man.
that's what you get with the Awkward Hi-Fi podcast.
Exactly.
So. Anyway,
It was good talking today.
yeah.
Leave those reviews, baby.
Go to iTunes and leave reviews so we can have this party, although that's going to be a slow drip until that happens. But we promise you that it'll happen. A written review on iTunes will really help us out. And all you Twitter people, follow us on Twitter. I promise if you do, we could start doing some fun stuff and actually get a little bit more involved with the people who actually listen to the podcast. So follow us on Awkward at Twitter at Awkward HI, the number 5. So that's Awkward HI5 at Twitter. And like I said, if you want to talk about anything, email us and we'll be here for you. And we'll see you guys in a few short days.
Wrapped in paper inside glass. My eyes were red when you were here, but now you're not and they're clear, my dear. Hey lover, where did you go? I'm not high and I'm not low. If I knew a breakup, man, I can't break you up and taste you again. With love, with breath, wanna smoke you up. Even though my chest hurts, smoke you up. Get more pain, less, wanna smoke you up. Inhale my best and I'm out of love. With love, with breath, wanna smoke you up. Even though my chest hurts, smoke you up. Get more pain, less, wanna smoke you up. Inhale my best and I'm out of love. Surrounded by seeds, I'm lost in the trees.
Thanks for listening to the Awkward High-Five podcast. For more episodes, visit awkwardhigh5.com.